the girl who painted snow. She couldn't see the snow, so she painted its true colors from her heart. The town of Whitebridge was famous for its Christmas. It was a picture postcard place, a village of charming stone cottages, and a winding main street, all nestled in a deep, quiet valley. When the snow fell, as it reliably did every December, the town transformed into a winter wonderland, a world of soft white curves and sparkling frost-covered trees. The people of Whitebridge were proud of their town's beauty, and Christmas Eve was a celebration of sight. They would stroll through the decorated streets, admiring the brilliant colored lights strung from the lampposts, the festive glittering displays in the shop windows, and the simple breathtaking beauty of the snow itself. But in a small, cozy cottage at the very end of Holly Lane lived a young girl named Anya, for whom this festival of sight was a world she could only imagine. Anya was blind. She had been born into a world of gentle and sometimes frightening darkness, a world she navigated not with her eyes, but with the keen and sensitive map of her other senses. Her world was one of texture, of scent, of sound. She knew the rough, friendly bark of the old oak tree in her garden and the smooth, cold, and reassuring feel of the river stones by the bridge. She knew the sharp, clean, and pine-scented perfume of a Christmas tree and the warm, spicy, and comforting scent of her mother's baking. She knew the cheerful, bright, and percussive sound of the church bells and the deep, profound, and peaceful silence that fell just after a heavy snow. Her world was as rich and as beautiful as anyone else's. It was just different. Characters wish or struggle, the heart's winter. Anya's struggle was not a sadness for the world she couldn't see, but a quiet and a deeply frustrating longing to share the beautiful and the vibrant world that she could see. She was an artist. In the small, sunlit studio her father had built for her, she did not work with paints and brushes, but with charcoal and thick, textured paper. Her hands, which were her eyes, would move across the paper, the charcoal stick an extension of her own, sensitive fingertips, creating beautiful, powerful, and deeply expressive drawings. She drew the things she knew. She drew the feeling of the warm summer sun on her face, a chaotic, joyful explosion of bold, energetic lines. She drew the sound of the gentle spring rain, a series of soft, patient, and rhythmic marks. Her art was a direct and a pure translation of her own unique and beautiful sensory experience of the world. But she could not draw the snow. The people of her town spoke of it with such a reverent and a visual awe. They spoke of its whiteness, its sparkle, its pure, and its monolithic beauty. But for Anya, the snow was a silence. It was a coldness. It was a softness under her boots. How could she draw a silence? How could she capture the essence of a thing whose primary and most celebrated quality was a color she had never known? Her wish, a deep and a creative and a profoundly artistic one, was to find a way to paint the snow, to show the people of her town the beautiful and the complex world of a winter snowfall that existed beyond the simple and the single color of white. The magical encounter, a spark of wonder. On this Christmas Eve, as the first thick and deeply silent flakes of the season's most perfect snow began to fall, Anya sat in her studio, a blank and intimidating sheet of textured paper before her, a stick of black and deeply inadequate charcoal in her hand. She was frustrated. She could hear the deep and the profound hush that the snow was bringing to the world outside. She could feel the temperature in the room drop as the world outside was covered in its cold white blanket, but she could not see it, and so she could not draw it. Her mother, a woman of quiet and of gentle and of deep and intuitive wisdom, came into the studio. She did not speak. She simply placed a small, simple, and deeply familiar object in Anya's hand. It was a small brass and perfectly tuned sleigh bell. It was from the harness of the old horse that had pulled the sleighs in her own childhood winters, a sound that, for her, was the very and the purest music of the snow. And then her mother did something she had never done before. She opened the large picture window of the studio, a window that was usually kept shut tight against the winter cold. A great, soft, and silent gust of cold and of snow-filled air washed into the room, and with the air came the sound, or rather, the silence. The world outside was so profoundly and so beautifully quiet that Anya could hear the almost imperceptible and the individual sound of each large and fluffy snowflake as it landed, a million tiny, soft, and crystalline whispers on the windowsill, on the branches of the tree outside, on the world. Anya held her breath, and then she lifted the small brass sleigh bell, and she rang it, a single, pure, and crystal-clear note, as sharp and as beautiful and as perfect as the winter air itself. And the note did not just travel out into the world, it came back. The sound, in the profound and the magical silence of the snowfall, echoed, it resonated, it painted a picture in her mind's ear. She could hear the shape of the world. She could hear the close, soft, and absorbent texture of the snow on the windowsill. She could hear the more distant and the more complex shape of the snow-laden branches of the great oak tree. She could hear the vast, open, and endlessly deep silence of the sky itself. It was a miracle, a beautiful and a profoundly and a synesthetic miracle. The world was not a picture of light and shadow. It was a symphony of sound and silence. And now, finally, she knew the colors of the snow, the transformation, the gift within. A new and a joyful and a deeply inspired energy surged through her. She did not just have one inadequate stick of black charcoal anymore. Her father, sensing the shift, the creative, and the magical breakthrough, brought her a box of new and of different materials he had been saving for her. There were soft graphite pencils for the quiet and the gentle whispers of the snow. There were sticks of pure white chalk for the bright and the clear and the high-pitched notes of the frost. And there were oil pastels in 100 different and beautiful shades of blue and gray and silver for the deep and the resonant and the endlessly complex chords of the winter sky. And she began to draw. Her hands did not move with a hesitant and a frustrated uncertainty. They danced. She closed her eyes, not that she needed to, but to better focus on the beautiful and the intricate and the magical soundscape that the world was singing for her. She drew the silence. She drew the cold. She drew the sound of the sleigh bell as it echoed off the soft and the silent and the beautifully and the profoundly textured world. She worked for hours, lost in a deep and a joyful and a purely creative trance. She was not just drawing a picture of the snow, she was collaborating with it. She was creating a duet between her own inner world and the beautiful outer world that had finally and magically revealed its true and its musical self to her. When she was finished, the large sheet of paper was no longer blank. It was a masterpiece. It was a symphony of texture, of line, of a deep and a complex and a profoundly beautiful energy. It was a picture that did not show you what the snow looked like. It showed you what the snow felt like. It was the most honest and the most beautiful and the most magical piece of art she had ever created. The ending, the whisper of Christmas. The next morning, Christmas Day, the people of Whitebridge, as was their tradition, held an impromptu art show in the town square, a celebration of the beauty of their perfect and their picturesque Christmas snowfall. The local painters brought out their pretty and their predictable watercolors of snow-covered cottages and quaint and snow-laden bridges. And then Anya's father, his face glowing with a quiet and a profound pride, brought out Anya's drawing and placed it on an easel in the center of the square. A hush fell over the crowd. They looked at the strange and the beautiful and the powerful piece of art. It was not a picture of their town, it was a picture of a feeling. They did not just see it, they experienced it. They could feel the deep and the profound silence of the snow in the soft graphite smudges. They could feel the bright and the clear cold of the air in the sharp white chalk lines. They could feel the vast and the mysterious and the deeply and the profoundly beautiful soul of the winter in the swirling and the symphonic and the deeply and the emotionally resonant blues and grays. They were not just looking at a drawing of the snow. They were seeing the snow truly and deeply and for the very first time. The mayor of the town, a man of simple and of practical tastes, stood before the drawing for a long and a silent time. And then he turned to Anya, who was standing quietly and a little nervously beside her father, and he did not pat her on the head or call her a dreamer. He looked at her with a new and a profound and a deeply and a beautifully humbled respect. "Thank you, Anya," he said, his voice quiet and full of a genuine and a heartfelt awe, "for showing us the true and the beautiful colors of the snow." The narrator reflects that we can spend our entire lives believing that the world is only what we can see with our eyes, but the world is a deep and a mysterious and a profoundly and a beautifully multi-layered thing. And sometimes it takes a soul who sees the world differently, a heart that knows how to listen to the silence, to show us the beautiful and the vibrant and the magical colors that have been all around us, all along, waiting not to be seen, but to be felt. And that's how Christmas found its way into another heart.